Cleveland International Hall of Fame, for including me with a lot of wonderful people over the years. As Jack Finney said one time when he was being honored, you know, I don't really deserve this honor. But then again, I've got arthritis, and I don't deserve that either. I was particularly touched that Sanjeev was my presenter. His only vice is hyperbole, which you've heard before. But he is one of my favorite all-time lawyers that I've worked with. He's a magnificent lawyer. He right now he's commuting between here and Sao Paulo to help us open an office in Brazil. He does it without any complaint. And I know that one example of how truly outstanding he is was back in 2002, and there's a European magazine called Merger Markets, and they ranked the top 5 lawyers on European deals in that year. Here's Sanjeev Kapoor in the top 5 lawyers handling European deals out of Cleveland, Ohio. So thank you very much, Sanjeev. That was just above and beyond. I deeply appreciate it. I'm glad you mentioned my long-suffering wife, Pat. She has supported me in all my endeavors, no matter how weird they may have been over the years, for our 61 years of married life. Thank you for that. I'd also like to thank David Fleschler for his remarks earlier tonight. That was really a total surprise to me. David has done a fabulous job at Case Western Reserve as the Associate Provost in charge of International Affairs. When he came there, which I think was about 6 or 7 years ago, the percentage of undergraduates at the Case who were foreign students was about 2.5%, and now it's 13%. And much of that is attributable to David's work. When I heard about this, someone asked me, well, what is it that justifies you to be part of the International Hall of Fame? And I had to think a little bit about that, and I came up with 6 experiences that may relate to this wonderful honor. Number 1, when I was 2 years old, I spent a year in Paris. I thought I was a young associate at a Boston law firm, and they wanted to open an office in Paris, and they wanted the youngest associate in the firm to go along with a partner. And so he went, of course, I went with him. And I'm told that after that year, on the boat coming back to the U.S., my language was such a hodgepodge of French and English, nobody could understand me except my parents. So that was my first experience with the international field. Number 2, when I graduated from college in 1950, I took a sleeping bag and 3 of my classmates, and we spent a year hitchhiking around Europe. You could do it in those days. And it was an amazing experience in a way, because each of us spent for the whole summer about $1,000 each. You could do it in those days, amazing. Well, while I was there, I fell in love with this beautiful Italian girl. I met her on a train from Madrid to Venice. She spoke not a word of English. I spoke not a word of Italian. But somehow we were able to communicate. And it was a wonderful experience. Number 3, in the 1970s, through some peculiar circumstances, I became the U.S. lawyer for Redmond Limited, which in those days was the world's largest producer of roof tiles, which are used throughout Europe. And I was their U.S. lawyer, and ultimately I became a member of the parent board in Reigate, Surrey. And for about 12 years, I made a trip to Reigate through London every other month. And so during that time I came to learn and love London. It was a wonderful city. I still think it's just about the finest city in the world. Next to Cleveland, of course. Number 4, in 1972, I was fortunate to join the board of directors of a local company here called Rotec Incorporated out in Aurora. They make large bearings from 24 inches to 30 feet in diameter. And they were eventually acquired by a very large German steel company. And so these Germans love to travel. And so our board, our Rotec board, with the Germans dominating the board, traveled to exotic places like Baden-Baden, the island of Madeira in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and Newark, New Jersey. Number 5, in 1991, I was chairman of the Greater Cleveland Growth Association, and as someone has mentioned this evening, we got the idea in those days that we should, quote, internationalize Cleveland. Cleveland had been referred to by a lot of the media as another Rust Belt city, and we didn't think that was fair or appropriate. And so we set out to change that image. And it was really amazing that Mayor Mike White had virtually the same idea at the exact same time we did. So we pooled our resources. Excuse me. And we formed an organization called the International Trade Alliance. And it had 3 objectives. 1, expand exports from Cleveland abroad. 2, try to attract more reverse investment of foreign firms into the Cleveland area. And 3, internationalize, cause our people here to think of themselves as living and being in an international city. We had this sort of defeatist mentality that we were just a Midwestern city with Rust Belt, and we didn't think that was a fair characterization. So those were our 3 objectives, and I think the Trade Alliance did some very good things for about a decade. Eventually, financial pressures and other things caused it to basically morph into what is now global Cleveland. But I was very glad to have that experience. And some of the arguments that we used were that we were an ocean-going port by reason of the St. Lawrence Seaway. We had, at that time, and it's probably about the same, over 117 nationality groups that were active and busy here. You've heard about some of them tonight. And in addition, in those days, Continental Airlines had non-stop service to London. So all of those factors we promoted to try to internationalize Cleveland. And number 6, and most important, and Sanjeev was referred to this, when I became the managing partner of Jones Day in 1984, the legal profession was expanding and growing rapidly. And we could see that if we were going to continue to have a leading position in the profession, we would have to become part of the international legal practice. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do that. It wasn't easy, but I spent a good part of my time for 6 or 7 years roaming around Europe and Asia trying to find good opportunities. And during that period, we were able to open offices in Paris and Brussels, Riyadh, Geneva, Hong Kong, Tokyo. So it was an exciting time and a lot of wonderful experiences. And it was somewhat scary because, you know, this was a big investment and it could have come crashing down. And as Sanjeev said, our partners weren't exactly ecstatic about it, but ultimately it paid off. So those are my claims to the international relationship, but I really am just totally overwhelmed by this honor tonight. I heartily salute and congratulate the Cleveland International Hall of Fame for continuing to promote Cleveland as a truly international city. All of us here deserve that recognition. Thank you very much.